4C, here we go. How long will the percent of male doctors be above 40%? So we know it's going to be the male doctor equation. Y1 equals 98 minus 0.54T. The information we're given is the 40%, so we're going to put that in for Y1. And then we need to think about the inequality because it says how long, so that's a range of time. It's not just, you know, one value. So we need to change this to an inequality. This piece represents the percentage of male doctors. And we want the percentage of male doctors to remain above 40%. So we want to erase this and say this Y1 or percentage of male doctors should be greater than 40. So this is how it would read if you read it forwards. You would say 40 is less than 98 minus 0.54T, or we could say, if you're reading it the opposite way, you could say 98 minus 0.54T is greater than 40. The percentage of male doctors is greater than 40. So it can't be equal to 40. It says it has to be above 40%. So this would be our inequality. And the first thing we're going to look for is where that 40% is. You want to find where the change occurs, you know. When it decreases to below 40, we start with where it's at 40. So let's go up to our graph. Let's use our graph this time. And I look at 40%. And I follow it over. And you'll notice that my line doesn't continue far enough. So I'm just kind of going to imagine where that occurs. And to me, it looks like it occurs around, I don't know, 110. So it looks like around 110 years after 1960 that we've declined to about 40% or dropped just below it, somewhere around there. So now what I'm going to do is I want to be more specific than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if this table down here will help me. And it looks like the years do not go that high. So I'm going to go to my calculator. And I go to y equals, and now I'm concerned about the male doctor equation. So I want to turn this one on, and I want to turn the female doctor equation off. And I'm going to look for approximately around 110 years after 1960. So T is approximately 110, and see if I can get closer to that 40-year mark. All right, so if you look at the table, you can see that when you get to 108 years after 1960, the percentage of male doctors has dropped below 40%. We want it to remain above 40%. So if it's going to be above 40%, the crossover is approximately at 107, where it's equal to 40. So let's go back to the book. So Y2 was about 40.22 when T years were at 107. And if we think about our equation, let's rewrite our equation. We said that 98 minus 0.54T needed to be greater than 40. So it is actually slightly greater in this year. So we can say is that T in relation to 107, it must be less than or equal to. And we can say it can be equal to 107 years because Y2 is greater than 40% in that year, 107 years after 1960. So this is going to be my solution. And just to describe that a little bit more, let's go back to the calculator, and you can see when it's less than 107 years since 1960, we're above 40%. The solution would not be where T is greater than or equal to 107 because look, when you get to greater than 107 years after 1960, the percentage drops below 40%. So the region that we're talking about is the 107 years, the 106 years, the 105 years, the 104 years. All of those years are years where the percentage has not dropped below 40%. So it's above 40%. So we have our answer. Now we need to write our sentence. So for our sentence, we should probably just copy down what our answer is. So t must be less than or equal to 107. Our original equation was 40, and we had the 98 minus 0.54t had to be greater than 40. Some people might prefer to write it in this manner. It might make more sense to you to write it this way and say, all right, in red, this represents the percentage of male doctors, and then it must be greater than 40. So we go to write our sentence, and we'll say the percentage of male doctors does not decline to below 40% until 108 years after 1960. So we could say that's when it declines to 40%. Let's think about another way we could say this. 107 years after 1960 would be 2067. So we could say the percentage of male doctors remains above 40% between the years 1960 and 2067 according to our prediction line. And you could probably change this to will remain because it hasn't happened yet. So the percentage of male doctors will remain above 40% between the years 1960 and 2067 according to our prediction line.